Hello and welcome into this week's edition of the Rookie Stripes podcast here on Racing News Now. I'm Garth Allan. That is Mr. Tyler Guthrie. How we doing today?
I'm tired as dude.
Same.
Not gonna lie.
It's Daytona week. It's Speed week. This is basically a national holiday, at least for me. I don't know about for you, but Daytona 500 is basically a national holiday for me.
Well, today it's Thursday, so there's no national holiday today.
But we're closing in on it, and we're getting into the festivities surrounding it, and I'm excited. No matter how bad the 500 turns out to be, because the Super Speedway package sucks right now, it's still the Daytona 500.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about this week. I'm actually more excited for every series other than Cup. I will try to watch the ARCA race. I'll be off for it.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I'm off the whole
weekend. Every time you say you'll try to watch something, you still don't watch it, though. So I'm not putting any stock in that just yet.
New Year, probably same me.
Probably, yeah. I believe that. And looking at some of your predictions for this weekend, yeah, I totally believe that.
Hey, if it doesn't work, keep trying it until it does.
Like John Roberts on NASCAR race day back in the day, picking Greg Biffle every week. And made up the chant, stick with the Biff, stick with the Biff.
It's not it.
Yeah. Eventually, Biffle did win, though, so he was eventually right.
Yeah, my luck, I would stick with somebody for a year and a half and then not pick them the next week and they'd win.
I mean, we're seeing that play out right now, so...
Yeah, sorry, Christian Eckes, you're not winning this week, apparently.
Hopefully Christian's not watching this week. So, lots happening this weekend. All 4 NASCAR series in action. Cup, Xfinity, Trucks, and ARCA. Still not into Tyler's time of year yet with IndyCar, and F1, I think, still has a couple weeks before they start. So, it's all NASCAR all weekend from Daytona. I'm excited. Let's jump right into it. Talk about the ARCA race coming up this weekend. There are 50 entries on this entry list. That is a lot of entries for ARCA at Daytona.
Yeah, just for 3/4 of them to wreck.
I don't know about 3/4 of them to wreck, but 3/4 of them to not be in contention for the win at the end. Sure.
Well, 3/4 to not be in contention for the win at the beginning.
Well, yeah, basically. They will probably be lucky to have 5 cars in a lead draft at the end, unless all the really fast cars wreck like they did last year, and then we might have something interesting at the end.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy last year, but I guess this year there's not really anybody that's standing out to me as a clear favorite. Not even like a group of cars that are a clear favorite to win.
No, I mean, even you look at the Venturini cars this year, and nobody even stands out to me from the Venturini cars as somebody that I'm looking at going, yes, they are a clear-cut favorite for this win. Like Jesse Love, you could have looked at him last year and gone, yeah, he's going to have the speed. He's going to be the favorite. Now, of course, he wasn't in contention by the end of the race, so he didn't win this race last year. But you could look at him on the entry list and go, yeah, Jesse Love is clearly the favorite. Now,
yeah,
there are some guys on this list, Andres Perez de Lara, LeVar Scott, who ran well last year. LeVar Scott actually ran really well in this race last year for being somebody who'd never been on a big track in his life yet when he was in this race, and he led laps last year. So LeVar Scott, I think, is somebody that definitely needs some attention in this race. Of course, his teammate Andres Perez de Lara definitely should be looked at. And then Venturini is bringing 5 cars in this race. But as I said, none of them stand out as somebody that I'm like, yeah, that's somebody that will clearly be in contention to win this race. Now, they've got some guys and girls with speed. I'm just not sure anybody stands out above the rest. They've got Chris Wright running full-time in the 15 this year. Be interesting to see what happens there all season. Jake Finch is in the 20. I don't think he's running a full season. I don't think he's old enough to run a full season yet. Well, no, he'd have to be if he's running Daytona. So maybe he is running a full season and I missed that. But Jake Finch is in the 20. I feel like Jake Finch has the most ceiling in terms of his potential talent. I don't know that he's there yet, though, and that's why I don't look at him necessarily as a clear-cut favorite here. But Jake Finch definitely, I think, is a dark horse in that 20 car and somebody to really look at. Amber Balkan finally getting a full-time shot in a quality ride in the 22 for Venturini. That's somebody I think we need to keep an eye on this season, as well as Tony Breidinger full-time in the 25. Tony did a lot better last year in her limited starts, was starting to turn the corner, was starting to have some speed, and now that we don't really have a Jessie Love in the field this year, she might be able to do some stuff this year. That being said, between Balkan and Breidinger, I feel like if one of them is going to win this year, I feel like Balkan has the better chance at it. From day one, I have been impressed by Amber Balkan. And everybody wants to say, we talked about this last week, everybody wants to say, oh, she did terrible in the 30 car, Rhett Jones Racing. She has no talent. She's just another token female in this series, blah, blah, blah. She outperformed where that car should be almost every single week.
Find me somebody that is fast in that car.
Exactly. Frankie Muniz wasn't fast in that car, and he showed as well that he had the talent. So I put zero stock in what she did at Rhett Jones, besides the fact that I really believe she outperformed where that car should be when she wasn't getting involved in someone else's wreck. Did she have a couple wrecks that were her fault? Absolutely. But the majority of the time when she was being wrecked, it wasn't her fault. And everybody's going to say, well, she shouldn't have been back there in the pack in the first place where she could have gotten caught up in a wreck. Where do you want her to be? Last? Because she's not going to be leading in that 30 car. That's not going to happen. Not when you're out here with Venturini and Rev Racing and all these other powerhouses that are in this series. You're not going to be leading on a consistent basis or hardly at all in that 30 car, no matter who you are. So I put no stock whatsoever in the results she had in that 30 car, but I have a lot of faith in her, and I really would like to see what she can do now that she's in a full-time ride, in a quality ride. That's something that I think we really need to keep an eye on this year, her and Tony, because I think both of them might have somewhat breakout years this year.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to see what all those cars can do without a Jessie Love in there, because, I mean, Jessie is obviously the best driver in ARCA last year, but without somebody winning by multiple seconds every race, you'll be able to see a lot more of the racecraft and strategy from some of these people.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Now, I would be worried that the Rev cars might turn into that Jessie Love role this year, because LeVar Scott was fast last year, and so was Andres Perez de Lara. I felt like LeVar Scott actually might have been slightly better last year in his limited starts than his teammate Andres Perez de Lara. But again, he had limited starts, so that's really hard to judge by. But I think from what I saw last year, LeVar Scott might have been a little bit better, but they weren't far off of Jessie Love last year. They weren't far off of the 20 or the 18. They couldn't quite keep up with them. But now that Jessie's gone, we're still going to have Sammy Smith around in the races. He's old enough. So Sammy Smith is not Sammy Smith, William Sawalich. So William Sawalich.
Say Sammy Smith.
Yeah, right. William Sawalich is probably going to win the majority of the races. He's got a year of experience under his belt in these cars. He's still in arguably the fastest car in the field in the 18 when he is making his starts. Sawalich is probably going to win most of the races this year. But the races that I look at to be a little more competitive and a little more exciting are going to be the big tracks and the races that Sawalich is not in, because you're going to be able to see more from Perez de Lara, Scott, Jake Finch, Amber Balkin, Tony Breidinger, some of these guys that can't keep up with the 18 on raw speed. You're going to see more from them in these races that Sawalich is not in, like this race in Daytona.
So Sawalich isn't in the full season, so is he eligible for full season points?
Yes, you don't declare series in ARCA. So he'll get points in any series he competes in on the ARCA platform. So he'll be running for the East Championship, but he'll also get main ARCA points in any main ARCA race he's in, as well as West points if he's in any West races. I'm sure he'll be at Phoenix, so he'll get West points from that. I don't know if he'll run any more West races than that, but yeah, you don't declare a series in ARCA, so he'll get points no matter what series he's racing in.
Okay, but even if he's by far the fastest in ARCA main when he is there, probably not a realistic chance that he's going for a championship.
I wouldn't think so. There's enough races that he's not going to be old enough to run that I don't think it's going to be possible. Now, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see the math on that, because let's say he won every race that he entered this year in ARCA. Obviously, it would depend on how well the next best person did in every race this season, how many points they had, but hypothetically, maybe it might be possible, because there's not that many big races he wouldn't be in. Let's see. Let's assume
Would it be like Daytona, Talladega, Michigan?
It's a little more than that. Let's assume that he's not going to be 18 before the end of the year, which I don't think is true. I think he turns 18 at some point this year, but I can't remember what his birthday is. The races he would not be old enough to run would be Daytona, Talladega, Kansas, Charlotte, Michigan.
Oh, so it's 1.5 miles too.
Kansas, yes. Pocono used to be 17, so you could be 17 to run at Pocono, but Pocono's not on the schedule this year.
What? You could run at Pocono, but not Charlotte?
Yeah, right?
Wow. Okay.
So that's 6 races that if he's not 18 by the end of the season, he would miss 6 races. That's not a lot of races. So hypothetically, if he won even the majority of the races that he's in, he actually might still contend for the championship. I'm not sure about that. That would be interesting to see.
Put the playoff format in, and congratulations,
yeah, right?
he wins championship.
Oh, God, don't ruin ARCA with the playoff format. ARCA has enough issues without the playoffs.
Not old enough to run in 6 of the races, still wins championship anyway.
Yeah, right?
That would be kind of... I don't want to see it happen, but it would be kind of funny.
Season with a broken leg. Oh.
Gotta get that waiver.
Yeah, that's right. Looking through the rest of the entry list here. Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG, going to be in the 28 car for Pinnacle Motorsports. That's another one I look at as a dark horse here. He doesn't have a lot of oval starts, but it's SVG. So who knows? I mean, he could be right up there in the thick of it at the end of this race.
As far as experienced drivers go in that field, I think he's probably the best one.
He has the most overall motorsports experience in this field by far. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah.
But the difference is he has very little oval experience. So that's what might trip him up. The thing that could save him here, and the thing that could put him in contention by the end of this race, is that I don't want to call Daytona easy, but
if you can stay in the draft, you're there at the end of the race.
Right. As long as you can stay in the draft and at least halfway understand how the draft works and not make a dumb move that gets you thrown out of the draft and kicked to the back, you could be there at the end and in contention. So it's very possible SVG could be right up there in the thick of things at the end of this race. And I would not be surprised to see SVG in victory lane in this race.
Honestly, if he can keep with the main draft through most of the race, I would be not very surprised if he did win the race. I think he's one of those guys that is able to adapt to different types of racing very, very quickly. And if he can just learn for a couple of laps and stay with everybody, he might have a shot at the end.
Absolutely. Marco Andretti will be making what I believe is his first ARCA start. I don't think he's ever run an ARCA race before.
He's done trucks, but I don't know about ARCA.
Yeah, I don't think he's done an ARCA race yet. In the 17 for Bruce Cook, that's a fairly fast car, so Marco might be up there in this as well. Marco might be one we're discounting here. When we say SVG has the most overall motorsports experience, if we're talking about tenured time in a race car, Marco might have him beat.
I don't like that stat. I don't feel like Marco's that old.
I don't think that's a stat because I'm just kind of pulling off of memory here. I have nothing to back that up. I'm not looking at any stats.
Marco started in IndyCar in like 2000.
That's old at this point. You realize most of the guys that started in NASCAR in 2005, 2006 are retired now or getting close to retired. Denny Hamlin started in 2006. Yeah.
I don't like that.
Right? Then we completely skipped over the 18 car in this race. As we said, not going to be William Sawalich. She's not old enough to run this race, but Tanner Gray will be in the 18 car in this race. Probably the best car Tanner has ever had in the ARCA Menard series. I will be curious to see what he can do here. I've not been overly impressed with Tanner Gray. I've been much more impressed with Taylor Gray than I have been Tanner Gray. I mean, Taylor has gone out here and won ARCA races.
I wish they'd made their names a little different so that way you didn't get him crossed over all the time.
Right? Tanner has one East win. That is all he has to his credit in the ARCA platform, and he has no truck wins. So really in NASCAR, that's all he has to his credit is one East win. Taylor has been much more successful so far in his NASCAR career. So I would really like to see what Tanner can do in this 18 car. If he can have this car up to its full potential in Daytona, he absolutely will be up there in contention for the win.
That's another one of those, if they stay with the draft, they've got a shot at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Tanner Gray in this car, whether I really want to believe he's going to be up there contending for the win at the end or what's going to happen here. This may be one of those situations where Tanner feels like this is his best shot that he's ever had and then screws it up somehow and causes a big wreck.
That's not unheard of. See that.
Yeah.
Coming to the line, making a bonehead move just because you think this is the best shot you got.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Speaking of the 30 car for Rhett Jones Racing, Justin Bonsignor is going to be in that car this week. You might recognize that name from the modified series up in the Northeast, one of the big names in that series, trying to carve the same path it seems that Ryan Preece has taken to the Cup Series. Ryan Preece was one of the big names up in modifieds before he came into the upper NASCAR ranks. So Justin Bonsignor, I've heard a lot of good things about him. I'm not super well versed on the modifieds, so I don't know a lot about him, but I do know he is one of the really good drivers up there in the modifieds right now. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in this race. Greg Van Alst bringing two cars for this race, the defending winner of this race. He will be in the 35 as usual, but he is also bringing the 34 this week with Martinsville, Indiana's Isaac Johnson will be piloting that car this week. So Greg Van Alst expanding, and he will apparently be running the full season again this year. But he said he was running the full season last year, and then only made a couple of starts after Charlotte. So we'll see if that holds true this year. Huh?
To be determined.
Yeah, right. Gus Dean will be running the 5th Venturini car, the 55, this week. Gus has become a mainstay in these super speedway races for Venturini at this point, and does fairly well. Hasn't won one yet, but I mean, he's always up there and fast unless he gets taken out in somebody else's incident. Gus is a good one. He's a good serviceable driver. He doesn't make bonehead moves, doesn't really get himself into compromising situations, and he has a decent amount of speed. He's one of those guys that you can count on him. If he doesn't get caught up in somebody else's mess, he'll be there at the end of the race. Now, does he win? Not usually. I mean, he's only got one ARCA win to his credit. So, no, 2 ARCA wins. He won at Talladega too, I think. Because I believe he has a Daytona win, and he won at Elko. I remember him winning at Elko in the 32. But I believe he also won at Daytona. Or not Daytona, Talladega. Yes, he won at Talladega in 2016 in the Mason Mitchell car. That's right. So, yeah, 2016 Talladega and 2018 Elko.
You want to feel old?
Huh?
Do you want to feel old?
Sure.
That Talladega win was 8 years ago.
To be fair, that was before RNN started. What makes me feel old is this is my 6th season doing RNN coverage. That's what makes me feel old.
I don't
it
like
doesn't feel like I've been doing this that long.
Ago.
Huh?
I don't like that 2016 was 8 years ago.
I don't either. I don't like that I'm going to be 32 this year.
Ugh.
Yeah, right? Not a fun thing to think about.
Flip it and you got what I'm going to be, so.
I got, 9 years on you then? You'll be fine.
Yeah. I don't feel like it sometimes.
Yeah, right? Andy Jankowiak is back, and I feel like I saw somewhere he's going to try to run the full season this year, which should be interesting. Andy J is always good for a solid run at every track he shows up to, so he might be a sleeper to contend for the championship this year. Hopefully he doesn't stretch himself too thin running the full season, but be cool to see Andy J out there more often. The pizza delivery driver from Buffalo, New York. The one, the only AJ Moyer is back. So we got a couple guaranteed cautions there.
Damn.
And that is that's about all I'm seeing on here for notables on the ARCA entry list. So how are we feeling about this? 50 cars for the ARCA race, and those are the notables. How are we feeling about this?
It's anybody's game, I guess. I mean, we'll just have to see how it goes. I think pretty much everybody in the field that has a somewhat competitive car, if they can stay with the lead draft, they're going to have a shot at the end, which is a lot of guys.
Right. But see, and that's the thing, is there's a lot of question marks that are in those competitive cars that we just don't know what they're going to do. That don't have a lot of experience on these tracks, that don't have a lot of experience in fast cars. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I guess that's the MO of ARCA in the first place is you've got a lot of guys in this series and girls that don't have a lot of experience in more national ranks like this, and they're getting in fast cars for the first time, usually around Daytona. And they've just got to kind of figure out what they're doing in these races.
Yeah, and some of these cars are fast enough, I think, that if you just keep your foot on the floor, even if you don't have a lot of experience, it'll keep you up there.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at LeVar Scott last year in this race. Had no experience whatsoever on big tracks. Had only run short tracks up to that point. Hadn't even been in an ARCA car up to that point, except for they still ran at New Smyrna last year, right? I think they did. So he should have had experience in that race, I believe. I don't think this was his first start in an ARCA car period last year. I don't think.
Either way, that doesn't translate super well to super speedway.
It was. It was his first start period in an ARCA car was Daytona last year. Because no, they didn't go to New Smyrna either last year. They started at Five Flags, which is after Daytona. So, yeah, this was his first start in any sort of an ARCA car at any level last year was Daytona. Outside of doing the preseason test, his first time in an ARCA car in a race setting. And he was competitive. He led laps. So it is possible. So I'm not totally discounting any of these guys or girls. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in this race. Like we said, there's a lot of question marks in this race that we don't know what they're going to do. And I think that is one of the most exciting things about ARCA is you've got these question marks that you don't know what they're going to do. And you just got to watch the race and find out.
Yeah, and this year you don't have a clear, like, first, second, third, just driving off into the sunset and everybody else racing for fourth. You actually get some of this for the win, and that'll be interesting. And hopefully get some more people into it, including me this year, because it's kind of hard to watch tiny F1 with Jesse Love winning the race by 3 laps.
Jesse Love or William Sawalich, yes.
Or, yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree and understand. Let's move on to the main 3 races for the weekend. ARCA will be Saturday at 1:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. So tune in for that. Friday will be the Truck Series race at 7:30 p.m. on FS1. Got a few notables in this race as well. Tony Breidinger making another truck start in the 1 for Tricon. Corey LaJoy will be in the 7 for Spire. Jake Garcia moves to the 13 this year for Thor Sport. Tyler Ankrum in the 18 moves over to McAnally Hilgeman this year. Ty Dillon moves to the 25 for Rackley War for the full season this year. Lane Riggs will now be in the 38 for Front Row Motorsports. Johnny Sauter, I must have missed this somewhere along the way. Johnny Sauter will be in the 45 this week for Nice. I can't imagine that's a full season ride, but I don't know. I wasn't expecting that to see Johnny Sauter in an East truck this week.
Is Lane Riggs related to Scott Riggs?
It's his son, yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Lane Riggs has a lot of talent. I would be curious to see what he does this year in the 38 because he's run very well in his limited Xfinity and truck starts so far. Now that he's in a truck that has proven that it can win the championship and win a lot of races, this might be a breakout season for Lane Riggs. Thad Moffitt will be competing for Rookie of the Year this year in the 46 for Faction Motorsports. Raja Caruth in the 71 for Spire. Spencer Boyd starting his own team, Freedom Racing Enterprises, the 76. Chase Purdy will be in the 77 for Spire. Jack Wood moves to McAnally Hilgeman in a partial schedule in the 91. What's that?
Freedom Racing.
That's right. America, freedom.
Is that better or worse than the Florida team you were talking about earlier?
Yes, Mason Maggio also starting his own team, the 21 truck Floridian Motorsports, which I am affectionately dubbing Florida Man Motorsports.
Affectionately?
Yeah, you know. I gotta say it's affectionately, right?
Yeah, you gotta say it, but
so yeah, anybody stand out, new names and new places in the truck series this year to you?
There's a couple names in new places that, I mean, it feels like it's mostly lateral moves for guys that are in different different trucks than they were last year. So I wouldn't expect a ton of differences there. I am excited to see Lane Riggs because that is a full-time ride this year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I am excited for that one. And Tony Breidinger getting in the Tricon truck, that'll be I don't want to say make or break, but it she's got to prove something in Truck Series in that truck. Other than that, I mean, it's not a whole lot different than what we had last year, and my prediction's gonna prove what I think about that. So, yeah,
No, I absolutely agree. Tony has some things to prove, but the limited starts she's had in that one truck, she's done fairly well. I mean, she hasn't set the world on fire when she's been in that truck last year, but I mean, she ran top 15, top 20 in that truck. I mean, that
yeah. Based on
I
what we've
don't
seen
feel
so
like
far, I'm not concerned about Tony Breidinger. It just seems like one of those. There's so much, not like a bunch of media attention, but for who she is, there's a lot of attention around it.
there is a lot of attention around her, and um, yes, I do feel like with all that attention, she does need to perform. And to this point, she hasn't really performed at any level, ARCA trucks, anything. Like she's not. She's been getting better. I'll give her that. Her 2023 season absolutely was her best season, and she is clearly improving. Um, is it as quickly as I would like to see her improving? No, but she is improving. She's getting better, and she's to the point, especially with what we're seeing in terms of depth in the ARCA fields this year. I'm not going to put it out of the realm of possibility that she wins an ARCA race this year. It'd be tough, and I'm not necessarily expecting it, but I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility.
Well, she is in a Venturini car again, right?
She is, yes. Now, like I said earlier, out of the two of them, if one of them's going to win this year, I would expect Amber Balkan to be the one to win. If only one of them wins, I would expect it to be Amber Balkan because I've seen more out of Amber than I have out of Tony so far, and I think Amber will run better this season overall than Tony will. But I think that's all we got for trucks. So let's move on to Xfinity. Got a couple notables in this race as well. Sammy Smith going to start his campaign for Junior Motorsports in the 8 this week. Daniel Dye will be in the 10 for Colleague. Haley Deegan moves up to Xfinity in her full-time venture with AM Racing in the 15 car. AJ Allmendinger moving back to, I believe it's full-time Xfinity this year, back into the 16. Sheldon Creed moves over to his long-awaited move to Joe Gibbs Racing in the 18 car. I think he's going to have a breakout year. If I was him after the way last year ended, I'd have a chip on my shoulder and I'd go out and try to win 10 races this year.
Oh yeah,
and he's got the
I'm
equipment
excited
to do it.
I'm excited to see what Sheldon Creed can do. I've always thought he was better than those RCR cars, and I guess now it's time to prove it.
Absolutely. Jordan Anderson will be bringing a third car in this race for himself, and I just noticed this with crew chief Larry McReynolds.
Larry Mack.
That's right, Larry Mack back on the pit box. You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it.
Larry Mack crew chief for somebody last year at like Darlington or something?
I do vaguely remember that. I feel like it was Jeffrey Earnhardt, but I don't remember.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think it was. I think Jeffrey was in. Why do I feel like Jeffrey was in the 3 car for RCR somewhere and they got Larry Mack on the pit box? So it was like an Earnhardt McReynolds reunion.
That sounds right.
I don't think it was Darlington, though. I feel like it was like Daytona or something.
I don't know. I'm glad they're letting Larry Mack out of the house, though.
Right? He seems to always be trapped in that booth in Charlotte on the TV broadcast. So
just to get cut to like once during the race.
Yeah, right. Frankie Muniz, it was announced within the last week, I think, that he will be in the 35 car for Joey Gase Motorsports. I'm a little disappointed by that, but like it's Daytona, so I guess as long as he stays in the draft, he still has a shot, but I'm a little disappointed that that's the best option that he had. Because again, I really feel like he showed he could do some things in ARCA last year, and the fact that he apparently must not have had any better options than that in Xfinity trucks or ARCA Feels a little disrespectful to me.
Yeah, I guess you can attribute that to maybe just having the 1 year of sampling. Um,
But
I
you're telling
mean,
me he couldn't find even a better ARCA ride this year than that? Like, come on.
the ARCA part does surprise me, but trucks and Xfinity, I'm not like. Yes, I'm disappointed he didn't get something better, but my expectations weren't super high there.
Yeah, same. Natalie Decker's back. She'll be in the 36 for DGM Racing this week. Leland Honeyman Jr. will be in the 42 car for Young's Motorsports. Brennan Poole in the 44 for Alpha Prime. Parker Kligerman's back in the 48 for Big Machine this year. The yearly start for Stanton Barrett. He'll be in the 74 for Mike Harmon. Chandler Smith moves over to Joe Gibbs in the 81. And
I missed that.
they've still got the 97 for Colleague as TBA, but isn't that supposed to be SVG?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be SVG. I don't know why the entry list shows that as a TBA, but 99% sure SVG is running full time in the 97 for Colleague this year. So not really sure why that's TBA. And then Daniel Suarez making a start for SS Greenlight in a number 14 Chevy sponsored by Wendy's.
Wendy's.
That's right.
Hopefully their Xfinity paint scheme is a little better than the one they had in Noah Gregson's car last year. I've seen worse.
Yeah.
Is that
I don't think it's quite as good as some of Gregson's schemes last year, but I don't think it's bad.
No, it's interesting. I don't hate it.
I mean, I've definitely seen worse in recent years.
The car will probably look better at the end of the race than it did with Gregson.
Yeah, probably. It won't look like his Chicago Street Course car did.
Found every single wall in the city of Chicago.
That's right. Oh, hi, Doc. Hi. Doc wants to be a part of the episode today, don't you? Yes, don't you? Yeah. You're awful affectionate today. All right, moving on to the Cup race. Few new names in new places this year. Of course, Josh Berry will be in the 4, replacing the retired Kevin Harvick. Noah
Still
Gragson
doesn't feel real.
No, it doesn't. He's done pretty good in the booth so far. It's not like I expected him to do bad, but yeah, Harvick's done pretty good in the booth so far.
I guess that's the only thing we had to look forward to with all the Cup guys retiring is them being good in the booth.
Right. Noah Gragson, of course, moves to the 10 for SHR and brings a bunch of terrible paint schemes with him. His Black Rifle Coffee scheme for this week is pretty bad.
It's not as bad as the other one he had for the.
No, it's not as bad as the Rush Truck Centers for LA, but that doesn't say anything at all.
The bar is already pretty low.
Yeah, the Rush Truck Center scheme had zero effort put into it, so you can't really do worse than that unless you're trying. But yeah, the scheme this week just ain't it. It's literally the same Bass Pro Shop scheme he had at Junior Motorsports, except instead of Bass Pro Shops on the hood, they've slapped the Black Rifle Coffee thing on there, and it doesn't look right.
No, I like the scheme, but the logo on that scheme is not right.
Yeah, they tried to incorporate Black Rifle Coffee on the hood instead of incorporating it into the scheme. They incorporated the scheme into the Black Rifle Coffee thing on the hood, and it doesn't look right. It looks bad.
It's like they're trying to do like one of those legacy paint scheme type of things where this is the driver's paint scheme. We're going to make all the sponsors fit on it, and Noah Gragson is not good enough for that.
Yep. Riley Herbst, again, I say it, not attempting, will be in the Daytona 500 because he's not an open car. He'll be in the 15 for Rick Ware Racing. Kaz Gralla attempting to race his way in the 36 for Front Row Motorsports. Will have to race his way in as he had a shifter issue in qualifying, could not shift out of first gear. The shifter was just not connected to anything.
That's fun.
Yeah, right? So didn't even get to make a lap, got out there and couldn't get out of first gear. So will have to race his way in tonight in the duels. JJ Yaley in the 44 for NY Racing. They return after not being in a race since the 2022 Daytona 500 when they showed up with Greg Biffle. There was a little bit of controversy around that this week because they announced they were going to be in the race, but they didn't initially announce a driver. And then everybody starts going, oh, it must be Greg Biffle. It must be Greg Biffle. And they were asking Greg on Twitter, X, Zitter, whatever you want to call it, whether if he was going to be in the 44. And he said no, due to unfulfilled contract obligations from 2022, he would not be racing for them. AKA, they didn't pay him for 2022.
I didn't see that part. I did see Biffle was talking about people were noticing a hauler and stuff with his name on it, and he's like, yeah, it's not.
Yeah, they probably didn't change the hauler at all from 2022. It's probably the exact same hauler. Not. They haven't repainted it, anything.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. So apparently they picked up JJ Yaley at the track. Like, he wasn't even signed until they were at the track.
Well, he's never going to retire, so.
Exactly. So yeah, JJ Yaley also attempting to race his way in that 44 car. Justin Haley, full-time this year in the 51 car for Rick Ware. David Reagan has locked himself into the race on speed in the 60 car for RFK, as well as Anthony Alfredo has locked himself in the 62 car for Beard Motorsports. Zane Smith starts his rookie season in the 71 car for Spire, as well as Carson Hocevar starting his rookie season in the 77 for Spire. And Jimmy Johnson attempting to race his way in the 84 car did not did not time himself in qualifying. So let's look at your dual lineups. I was looking for overall qualifying results and could not find them. Nowhere has the full qualifying results. I guess I should have just saved them for myself during qualifying if I really wanted them, because nowhere has them. They just put the dual starting lineup. So, your front row for the Daytona 500, the only ones locked in on speed, or locked into their positions on speed. Joey Logano's on the pole. Michael McDowell starts on the outside pole. Great qualifying effort for Michael McDowell. Great qualifying effort for the Fords. I'm not sure when the last time we didn't have Hendrick-powered Chevys on the front row for the Daytona 500. It has been a while. They've had a lock on that front row for a long time.
I read a stat about it right before we started recording. I think it's been 9 years, and 8 of those 9 years were Hendrick cars.
I believe it. Like, Hendrick has always put a lot of effort into qualifying. Like, it seems like they put more effort into qualifying than they do for the race for the 500.
Well, I mean, how much preparation can you put in for a race where you can just get deleted from it at any time?
Right. Well, and it makes me wonder if they didn't try to put a little more effort into the race this year. Now, granted, 3 of the 4 didn't qualify bad. 3 of the 4 made it to the final round. Kyle Larson timed in 3rd fastest. Chase Elliott was 5th fastest. And William Byron was 6th fastest. Alex Bowman, your defending pole winner for the 500, he's got a bunch of 500 poles at this point, only clocked in at 17th fastest. So that's out of Bowman. They were all fast, just not front row fast. So I'm not sure. I don't know if everybody else has caught up to them, or if maybe they were just trying to have more speed for the race this year and they put a little more effort into the race this year. That'll be interesting to see.
I would argue that the new Ford body style just looks like it's going to be fast on these tracks.
Mm-hmm.
It looks more sleek than the Chevys, which have the Camaro brick style front end. That said, the Chevys are still by far the best looking car.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I like the Fords. The Fords look mean.
I'm not a fan of the new Mustangs. The ones they had the past couple years, the GT500 body style, those were cool.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore.
So, your open cars. Duel number 1, open cars. Anthony Alfredo will start 11th. Jimmy Johnson will start 18th. And JJ Yaley will start last in 21st. Now,
I forget. How does that work? Oh, like 2 of the 3 of those can get locked in?
2 of the 3 of those lock in. Alfredo is already in on speed. If out of those 3, Alfredo is the highest finisher at the end of the race, he races his way in. So then Jimmy Johnson will be in on speed. Or if Alfredo is not the highest finishing of those 3, Johnson or Yaley, whoever is the highest of the 3, races their way in. Make sense?
No. Like, yes, it makes sense. It's just, why would it? It's just dumb that if he finishes higher, then he's in on finishing position instead of speed. I feel like it should just be.
Let's put it this way. Alfredo is in no matter what. That cannot change.
That part makes sense. It's just the part where the terminology changes based on where people finish that seems dumb to me, but
yeah,
whatever.
Because let's put it
I've
this
still
way.
got my coveted Indy 500 qualifying, so this all seems dumb to me.
Well, yeah, because let's put it this way. Let's say Alfredo finishes the highest of those 3, but JJ Yaley outruns Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson still makes the race because he was the next fastest of those 3. So he gets in on speed if Alfredo races his way in.
So basically, JJ Yaley needs to raise his way in, otherwise he's not getting it.
The only scenario where JJ Yaley gets in is he needs to finish ahead of Jimmy Johnson.
And Alfredo.
He doesn't have to finish ahead of Alfredo.
Right, but Alfredo can't finish ahead of both of them.
Alfredo can finish ahead of both of them. If Alfredo finishes ahead of both of them, No, you're right. You're right. Alfredo cannot finish ahead of both of them if Yaley makes it in. So
Yaley needs to beat both of them.
The only scenario where JJ Yaley makes it in is he has to beat both of them. He has to beat both of them, and then Alfredo makes it in on speed and Jimmy misses. That's the only scenario where JJ Yaley makes it in.
I hate Daytona 500 qualifying.
Yeah. Duel number 2, Michael McDowell will start on the pole for that, as he will start on the outside of the front row for the Daytona 500. Riley Herbst clocked in at 12th fastest in a Rick Ware car. So kudos to Riley Herbst. He'll start 6th in duel number 2.
David Herbst is not full-time anywhere, right?
No. He's full-time Xfinity. He's still in the 98 for Stuart Haas.
Okay.
David Reagan is the one that is in on speed in duel number 2. He starts in 13th in duel number 2. And then the other 2 trying to race their way in will be BJ McLeod starting 20th and Kaz Gralla starting 36th. BJ McLeod is the one that if David Reagan races his way in, if David Reagan beats the other 2, BJ McLeod gets in on speed.
Okay.
Because Kaz Gralla did not have a speed.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So Kaz Gralla is in the JJ Yaley situation. He has to beat both of them. If he wants to make it into the race, he has to beat both of them. Which, beating an RFK car at Daytona is going to be a stretch.
Yeah, I don't think that one's happening.
I don't think so either, especially because Reagan is starting right behind his teammate, Brad Keselowski.
And it's not like David Reagan is a slouch on these tracks.
No, not at all. He has 2 career wins. Oh, I spelled that wrong. David Reagan, not Regan. Not Regan Smith.
Reagan.
Yeah. He has, I believe it's 2 career wins. Yes, 2 career wins, and I think they're both at Daytona. Yes, He won the July race at Daytona in the 6 for Roush in 2011, and in 2013, no, that one was Talladega. 2013, he won Spring Talladega in the 34 for Front Row. So David Reagan's 2 wins are on super speedways. David Reagan knows how to race on a super speedway.
And one of those was with a front row car.
Yeah, exactly. Well, front row cars have historically been good, even prior to Michael McDowell at super speedways.
Yeah, it's still a front row car, though.
Right. I mean, there was a period where when it was David Reagan and David Gilliland at front row, they were a formidable duo at those races because that was right there in the 2-car tango days of super speedway racing.
Oh, God.
Those two would 2-car tango their way up to the front pretty well. They knew how to 2-car tango themselves.
I'm so glad we don't do that shit anymore.
I'm not. I like 2-car tangos. I think it'd be better than what we've got now.
As a Jeff Gordon fan, it was terrible.
Yeah?
Because everybody always ditched Jeff at the end of the race. Or you got Mark Martin, and Mark Martin reacted to runs like somebody that was really old, because he is.
Because he was really old.
Because he was.
All right, moving on to... well, we've got a couple of news pieces that I'm assuming you want to talk about this week. We have an IndyCar news piece and an F1 news piece. So what's the IndyCar news for this week?
Frickin' Dave Malukas broke his hand on a mountain bike incident and is now...
that wasn't even the news I was thinking of.
Oh, I don't... Okay, so we'll do this one first.
Go ahead with the David Malukas news, then we'll move on to Nashville.
Lil Dave smashed his hand on a mountain biking accident. Now he's going to be out for at least the season opener, but don't worry, we don't race for a month after that, so he'll probably be back in time for round 2. But that's not a great way to debut at McLaren. The team's been really supportive of him, and I mean, you can't tell your driver to not ride a bike. I mean, stuff happens.
He pulled a Chase Elliott is what he did.
He did pull a Chase Elliott. But, yeah, I mean, stuff happens. It sucks he's going to miss season opener. They have not said who the replacement driver is going to be. So I guess there's a short list there that you could probably pull some names out of the hat.
James Hinchcliffe.
McLaren won't do that. I've seen Tony Kanaan thrown in there. I highly doubt that's going to happen, although he is like the advisor or whatever for McLaren now. I saw Callum Ilot's name thrown around. He doesn't have a ride anywhere right now. And I mean, that would be an okay choice, I think. But yeah, so then the other bit of IndyCar news. So the Tennessee Titans ruining more than just AFC South. They're starting construction on a new stadium in downtown Nashville. So the whole point of the end of the season was that Nashville Street Course was going to host the season finale. And then I guess they brought in some new management for the overseeing the event for that. And they were talking to the city and the team and all that. Well, now they're not going to have the street race, but we get to go back on the oval at Nashville Superspeedway. So
is this a permanent change? Like, is the Nashville street race completely done, or is this just a 1-year thing because of the construction?
As of right now, it's just a 1-year thing because most of the roads they would have used for the race are going to be demolished at this point. But they're supposed to bring it back next year. I think this year they were going to have a different race set up anyway. It wasn't going to be the track that they've had for the last couple of years. It was going to be like actually downtown Nashville instead of around the current Titan Stadium. So it would have been different anyway, but now we get very different, and we finally get an oval race that's not a short track, and it's not Texas or Indy. So, and a little stat nugget, the last person to win at Nashville Superspeedway in IndyCar was Scott Dixon. He won the last 3 races there.
Nice.
Yeah. So Scott had a comment about it earlier in the week. He's like, yeah, it's a good place for me.
So I'm going to go ahead and predict now. I say Scott Dixon will win that race. I'm going to go ahead and lock in my prediction for that episode now.
Okay. All right. You got it.
All right. And then F1 news. We didn't talk about this last week, did we? The Lewis Hamilton news?
I don't think we did.
I don't think so. I don't even know if this was out last week. I don't remember it being out last week. But Lewis
I don't think it
Hamilton
was.
announced that next year, 2025, he will be moving to Ferrari, which came way out of left field.
A little bit.
I don't think anybody was expecting that.
I wasn't expecting Ferrari per se. I'm not surprised he's leaving Mercedes.
Yeah.
That relationship has been falling apart the past couple years. That said, he has said that he wants to end it on a high note with Mercedes, and winning a championship would be cool and all that PR stuff. But I know Hamilton's
team's going to have to really improve this year if they're going to compete with Red Bull for the championship.
So is everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying, though. Like, he can say he wants to win a championship, but that's not the Mercedes of 3 or 4 years ago.
No, it's kind of sad already this year. Ferrari hasn't really said anything about being competitive. Mercedes is like, yeah, we're hopeful. McLaren said, yeah, we can challenge Red Bull after some mid-season updates. It's like, okay, we're doing the same crap as last year again. I know Hamilton's always, he said that Ferrari was a childhood dream for him, which it probably is for everybody else in the universe. I don't really think of anybody that wouldn't want to drive an F1 car for Ferrari. But I think him and Leclerc, if they can actually figure out how to run a team.
So is he replacing Sainz? Is that
official? He's replacing Sainz.
Okay.
So if Ferrari can, nowhere yet.
Okay.
If Ferrari can figure out how to run a team cohesively, it might actually work out for both of them.
That's a big ask for Ferrari.
Don't even get me started. But no, Hamilton's still got some left in the tank. We know Leclerc's good. Yeah, I guess we'll see from there. But paint schemes have come out already for F1 this year, and most of the cars have been launched. There's some pretty cool ones. Have you seen some of them?
I haven't seen any of them. I didn't even know they were out yet.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody's out. The Visa Cash App RB is basically the old Toro Rosso chrome paint scheme.
So is that what they're calling AlphaTauri now?
Yes.
Okay.
The Visa Cash App RB race team.
All right, then. I liked AlphaTauri better.
Is that better or worse than Steak F1? That's
Steak
Sauber
F1.
now. Or, I'm sorry, it's Kick Steak F1.
Wait. Sauber hasn't been a thing for a while. What were they last year?
Alfa Romeo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. So
it was still Sauber.
Is it steak Stake?
Mm-hmm.
Or like steak the meat?
No, the first way.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
It would be better if it was meat, but
I agree.
Whatever.
Absolutely. Now you're making me hungry.
The car is black and neon green.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's quite
the Mercedes is
from
cool.
Alfa Romeo red.
Yeah, the Mercedes is cool though. It's the same black base scheme that they've had the past couple years, but they brought back some of the silver. It's just a silver stripe down the middle.
Okay.
That looks kind of neat. But the Haas looks like it's going to be slow again.
Just looks Haas slow. Not slow. They've had like one season where they were halfway competitive.
And it was like their first season.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my expectations are.
Didn't they fire low. Gunther though? I thought I saw they fired Gunther.
Huh? He resigned.
Yeah.
So now Drive to Survive is going to suck. Oh no.
On to predictions for this week. Before we wrap things up here, we'll start off with ARCA. That will be Saturday, 1:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. Tyler, who wins the season opener for ARCA?
I'm going to SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen. I think if he can stay with the lead draft for most of the race, he's shown that he's an incredibly adaptable driver. and I think he'll be able to learn enough to get him to the front if he stays there towards the end of the race.
I can agree with that. I mean, I watched him at IRP last year in the truck race, and I believe that was his first oval start. He didn't run well. He didn't set the world on fire. He finished like 20th or something, ran around 20th all night, 15th, 20th, somewhere in there. But what I saw a guy that knows how to drive and got better throughout the race and was learning what he needed to do on ovals. This is a guy that I think will pick up ovals very quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised, even if it's not this quickly, I wouldn't be surprised to see him win multiple oval races this year in Xfinity or wherever else he runs this season. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, these V8 supercar guys are nuts. You've seen what Scott McLaughlin's able to do in IndyCar, and that's
Absolutely.
a completely different car than what he was used to racing.
Has Scott McLaughlin won an oval in IndyCar yet?
Yes.
He did?
If he didn't, he was like very close at Texas.
Okay.
Like lost it going through the tri-oval to
okay.
Well, not the tri-oval. You know what I mean.
Yeah, the double dog leg. The front stretch.
Let's see here. He has not won an oval race yet. But his finishes at Texas are 2nd, 8th, 2nd, 6th.
So he's run well, even though he hasn't won one yet.
Yeah, he should have won the year he finished 2nd.
Okay. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by SVG at all. I, though, am going to go with experience. And I'm going to go with Gus Dean. Gus Dean has won on a super speedway before at Talladega. He has probably the most ARCA experience of anyone in the field. I'm not seeing anyone on the entry list that's at least in a competitive car that has really more ARCA experience than he does. Yeah, I don't think there is anybody. So I think experience is going to win out with this. If Gus Dean makes it to the end of the race, I think we see Gus Dean in victory lane, putting Venturini back in victory lane at Daytona. All right, on to trucks. And by the way, if you're watching the premiere, or if you're watching this later, if you're watching the premiere, let us know your picks for this weekend in the chat. Or if you're watching later, let us know down in the comments. I'm actually going to keep track this year. And I'm actually going to make points for Tyler and I throughout the season so we can see who's doing better. And we're going to break it up by series, too. So we're going to have whoever's winning by series as well. So if you want to play along and see if you're doing better or worse than either one of us, keep track of your own points. We're going to go by points, however many points our pick made in that race. And we're just going to add those up like normal points throughout the season. So if you want to keep up with us and try to see if you're doing better or worse than we are with your picks, make your picks and keep track of your numbers there. And let us know how you're doing if you're keeping up with us or not. Or if you're doing better than us. You're probably going to be doing better than
That'll
us.
Probably, yeah.
On to trucks. That'll be the first race, the first points race of the weekend. Of course, we got the duels tonight, which will be 7 p.m. on FS1, by the way. So check those out tonight to see how the lineup sets up for the Daytona 500. Trucks will be Friday night, tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. Tyler, who wins the truck race?
Some things never change, just like me picking Christian Eckes. I actually think it's a fairly solid choice. I think he's going to do really well again this year, and hopefully not get screwed out of the Final Four for the championship this year.
I almost picked Eckes, and then I just didn't want to. I didn't want to sound like a broken record. Clearly, Tyler doesn't care about that.
I'll catch the heat. I don't care. It's Christian Eckes.
I'm going to go with Corey LaJoie. Corey has shown he has a very good super speedway acumen so far in the Cup Series, and he's got a lot of teammates this year now that Spire has absorbed Kyle Busch Motorsports. He's got a lot of teammates, going to have a lot of help in the Chevy camp. I think Corey LaJoie uses his experience. There's a theme here in terms of my picks with experience.
Just because you're old doesn't mean you have to pick everybody with experience.
Okay, well, you're going to like my Xfinity pick then. But yeah, I think Corey LaJoie wins the truck race, which might set him up well for Sunday. On to Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Xfinity. Tyler, who you got?
I'm going to go with Jesse Love.
Speaking of a broken record.
Okay, at least it's in a different series now. But
well, you didn't have him as a choice in ARCA.
I still jokingly thought about putting it down, but but no, I think he's going to do okay in those RCR cars. He doesn't have the experience in the Xfinity cars yet, but these are not the types of tracks that you need that type of experience on. And
it's not like he doesn't have experience at super speedways. He ran Daytona and Talladega and ARCA.
Yeah, I think he's going to be there the whole race, and those RCR cars are usually fast on super speedways. So even if he doesn't win, I'm definitely expecting a top 5, top 10.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would agree with that. My worry with Jesse Love this season is he's going to become a second-class citizen like Sheldon Creed was in that car, and they're going to put all their emphasis and all the good parts and all the good cars to Austin Hill, and Jesse is just going to get the scraps, and he's not going to live up to his full potential. That's my worry with Jesse Love in that 2 car, but hopefully that's not the case. Now, my pick will be the former driver of the 2 car. He's going to shut all the haters up and show that he's better than Austin Hill. Sheldon Creed is going to win at Daytona in his first race for Joe Gibbs Racing in the 18 car.
I won't be surprised at all.
I think this is a make or break year for Sheldon Creed. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder after the way last year ended. I really want him to go out and win like 10 races this year. As a media member, I'm not supposed to be biased, but I'm actively rooting for Sheldon Creed because of the way he got screwed over by RCR last year. Actively rooting for him.
Yeah, there's no better feeling to me than RCR getting his mouth shut. So,
yep, absolutely. All right. On to the main event for the weekend, the Daytona 500, Sunday, 2:30 p.m. on Fox. Tyler, who wins the Daytona 500?
I'm going to go with Brad Keselowski. Now, they've been really fast on super speedways ever since he started the RFK team. He's got another teammate this year, so there's 3 of them now. And the Fords are looking really fast as of now. So I think combined with the fact that they've just been there the entire time they've been a team and having more help and the car being fast, I think this is a perfect storm for Brad Keselowski.
You know what? I think that's a very, very solid pick. And you're right. They have been very good at super speedways. The only reason I personally would shy away from Brad Keselowski is he has shown over the past couple of years that he likes to play the good teammate role. So if he has the ability, I think, even though it's the Daytona 500, I think he would push Buescher or Reagan to the win over winning the race himself. Now, I know that's probably weird because it's the Daytona 500, but I feel like he actually would do that. I feel like he's in that teammate, team owner mindset now that he wants his cars to do well more than he wants himself to do well.
Yeah. And you just see Brad Keselowski propelling Chris Buescher's career to unimaginable heights at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that would be my only thing for shying away from Brad Keselowski on that pick. But I think it's a solid pick. I think he'll be right up there if he doesn't get caught up in a mess at some point. I, though, am going to go for what's probably going to be a controversial pick. I think Dennis Hamilton,
Boo.
wins his 4th Daytona 500 and starts his march toward his first championship.
Angrily marching toward mediocrity at the end of the season.
Probably. It will probably end that way, but
I beat your favorite driver.
I think this is I think we talked about this last week. I think this is going to be one of those seasons where he's going to have a chip on his shoulder and he's either going to go out and win 15 races or he's going to wreck almost every week trying to win, or he's going to finish second and have some excuse why he didn't win.
He's going to win a bunch of races and then suck at Phoenix, so
probably I could see that too. But I think that's about all we got for this week. So we're going to leave it there. I got to get this edited and up tonight before the duels, and I've got other things to do today, so that might not happen, but I'm going to try. We'll see how that goes. So thanks for hanging out with us, y'all. Enjoy the Daytona 500. Have a good weekend. Tyler, have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. At that, I'm Garth. That's Tyler. And this is the Rookie Stripes podcast on Racing News Now.